Hi guys, welcome back to my videos. Thanks for joining us. So today we are going to be diving into how we can structure really good Facebook advertising campaigns. Now, I'm going to go into a lot of detail about how you plan your ads, and I'm going to share with you a really useful spreadsheet that I've developed myself, which I find fantastic for planning my Facebook advertising campaigns. Now, personally, I used to set up all my own Facebook ads because, you know, as entrepreneurs do, we start doing everything ourselves and then we start delegating. And now I delegate it out to another member of my team. But the point is that the process is the same. I still have to plan it. I still have to write down what I want to do. You can either do that with yourself and set that up in Facebook Business Manager, or you can then hand that over to, you know, somebody that can do that for you. But either way, the planning side of this is really, really important. So we're going to dive into that today, and I'm going to share that spreadsheet with you so that you can do this as well. So I'm Sarah, I'm founder of the Fastnet agency. We are a specialist e-commerce agency working with ambitious, innovative e-commerce brands that are looking to grow quickly and sustainably. And I do these videos every week. I normally release them on a Thursday. And so if you like this and you find it useful, please do subscribe to my channel and hit the bell as well. And that means you'll be notified every time I post a new video. Okay, so task number one. Sorry, I always end up setting homework in these videos, but task number one, I'd like you to download a link to the spreadsheet, the Google spreadsheet that I've got. It's just down there in the comments below. And this will help you to start planning your ads. And it really helps you to plan everything from actually where your budget's being allocated, what percentage of budget you're allocating to different sections of your funnel, and then the actual creatives themselves, you know, what's being placed where, what do they look like, etc., etc. So I'm going to talk you through how to use this spreadsheet. Just to be clear, what I'm not going to cover in this video is how to go into Business Manager and set up the ads themselves. Now, if you'd like me to do a video on this, please do comment below. I'm happy to do one. But my thought process behind this is that there are a lot of videos out there showing you the step-by-step of how to set things up in Business Manager. Really, the trick is knowing what to set up. So if you've got all of this done, you should just really be easily able to go into Business Manager, go through, set up your audiences, go through, set up your adverts. And as I say, there's lots of information out there about how to do that. But do comment below if you feel that that's something that you think is missing and you'd like me to cover, then I'm very happy to do so. Okay, so hopefully you've downloaded that Excel spreadsheet by now, and we're going to open sheet number one, which is labeled Campaign Launch Planning. Now, on the left-hand side, you will see that there is a big green box which says overall budget. Now, I've got this in pounds because we're a British agency. You might want to change it to dollars. But basically, you pop in there whatever you're planning on spending over the course of a month. So, for example, you might put £500 in there. That's your total advertising spend for that month. Pop it into that box. Now, next to this is a column called Audiences. Now, if you've gone and done the work on your customer personas, you should be able to decide upon what types of audiences you want to use. And especially if you're in the testing phase, it might be that you want to try a few different types of audiences. So looking at your customer personas, you might say, right, okay, well, some of my audiences are going to be, young mums, or it might be some of my audiences are going to be people interested in football, or, you know, I really want to target people that live in a particular area of the country or a particular area of the world. Now, there's spaces in there for, I think, about 6 or 7 different types of audience. So you can split that out. And I want to emphasize that these are all top of the funnel audiences. That means that these are all cold audiences for people that don't already know your brand. And we build that out by using their demographics and their interests and so on and so forth. So depending on how many audiences you want to target, you can go through this first column and you can note them all down there. And then I want you to put in your percentage of your total spend that you're going to use on those audiences. So it might be that you've got 2 really strong audiences that you know work every time and you want to allocate the majority of your spend to those audiences. Fine, pop it in there. It might be that you want to test a couple of audiences, you don't want to put too much towards it, 10% maybe, fine, pop it in there. But either way, adjust your percentage. Obviously make sure you've got 100% coming out at the bottom, otherwise you might go a bit astray. But yeah, put in your percentages there according to your audience types. And that will then show you your monthly spend. So if you want to allocate your spend on a monthly basis, it'll go in there, and also your daily spend. Now, don't worry too much about that at the moment because it's actually broken down in more detail a bit later on in the spreadsheet. It's just to give you a rough idea. Now, underneath this, if you scroll down, you will find that as if by magic, the dark blue sections have auto-populated with the names of your audiences. And then you will find there that we've then got 3 different types of campaigns related to each of those audiences. Now, this isn't quite right because obviously we can't tell when we're retargeting whether or not it's specifically related to that audience, but it just helps us to, in our minds, split up the budget between the types of customers that we have. So for example, the one I've got here is fashion-led mums. So if I scroll down to the first section here in the dark blue box, it says fashion-led mums, and underneath that it says prospecting, which is top of funnel, re-engagement and remarketing. And we can see here that I've allocated it that for this particular audience, I'm going to allocate 80% to the top of the funnel, 10% to the middle of the funnel, and 10% to the bottom of the funnel. And then that gives me my individual budgets. I can then put in my next audience underneath that, my next audience underneath that, and I think I've got about 6 or 7 in there that you can populate. You might need to add some more if you've got more than that. So that starts to populate that first page. And if we roll to the right here, you'll see that that gives you a bit of an overview of the budgets. And underneath that, you can also put audience descriptions. So what we tend to do is leave that blank. And then when we actually go to set up the audiences, we base the audiences on the description that we put in here, and then we add in exactly what we've put. So for example, the fashion-led mums is aged 35 to 41, mothers of young children, various interests, urban, suburban, etc, etc. Moving to the next sheet along, you'll see that there's a sheet at the bottom there called media planning. This is where we get to deal with all the numbers. So this is where we really kind of start with the budgets, and I always ask whoever's setting it up to use this page as the basis for their budget planning when they're actually setting up the campaigns, because this takes everything in and gives you a clear overview. So you'll see that you've got along the left-hand side, the red figures are the total budgets for each stage of your campaigns. So we've got ad set 1, which is your prospecting, your cold audience. We had a total budget of £500 here, so it's allocated £360 to your cold audience ad set, and then it divides it up between the individual audience groups, so you know exactly what to spend on each audience group. Within this sheet, we always allocate 10% of budget for what we call boosted posts and Facebook likes. Now this is just our preference as an agency, but we allocate a certain amount of budget to organic posts within Instagram mainly that have had a lot of traction with our audience. We allocate a certain amount of budget to boost those. And this is really just purely about getting new followers on social media, not about selling products. So we allocate a certain percentage of our budget towards that. And we do the same with Facebook like campaigns as well. I'll leave that down to your decision, but that's why it's there. And you'll see it's colored in an orangey color at the top. So moving underneath this, we've got ad set 2, which is highlighted in the light green color. So yeah, under there, we've got Facebook engagers, Instagram engagers, and we've also got anyone that has engaged with our adverts on either platform. So they all go into that retargeted audience. So you can obviously set up those 3 separate audiences within your Facebook Business Manager, and then we run these re-engagement ads to those audiences. And we've obviously got a split budget. Depending on the percentage that we've allocated to that part of the funnel on that first page will then determine the budget overall that we allocate towards them on the second page. So that means that we can then retarget those people that have already seen our content in some way. And then moving towards the bottom of the sheet now, we've got our yellow section, which is remarketing. Now this is specifically people that have gone to your website, either via the advert or because they found it in some other way. Now this isn't quite as easy to track as it used to be. We've all heard about the iOS updates and the fact that tracking isn't so easy anymore on phones and so on and so forth, but it's still there, and this is obviously a really important element of your remarketing. We as standard tend to set up anyone that's visited the homepage, anyone that's visited a product page, anyone that's added to the cart, and anyone that's initiated checkout, and we have individual adverts for each of those 4 elements. You might want to be more sophisticated than that. You might want to add additional elements in, or you might want to be less sophisticated and take some elements out. Completely up to you, but those are the standards that we tend to have with our campaigns. And again, it will allocate how much we contribute towards each advert within that set on that column there, showing you the budgets. And then finally, we've got a 4th section, which we only tend to use with higher budgets, because obviously we've got to allocate enough budget to each section to make it worthwhile doing, which is remarketing kind of post-purchase stuff. So anybody that's hit your, confirmed order page, for example, anyone that's actually completed a purchase, we can then retarget them in that section there. I haven't actually got this filled in for this client. This client had a relatively low budget. We tend to find anything below sort of £5,000. Yeah, it just eats too much into the budget in order to make it worthwhile. But if you've got a higher budget for your Facebook ads, then you'll obviously be wanting to look at retargeting those people that have already bought from you. And that could be with complementary products, or it could be to persuade them to subscribe to a mailing list or join a group or whatever that might be. But that's where you place those adverts there. Now I'm just going to point out, because we'll come back to this in a minute, at the top of that page it says link to creative here, and this is where I normally put a Google Drive link to any of the actual ad creatives that we've set up. And I just pop that in there so that anyone that's setting up the adverts can see that, go through, and I normally tend to structure the folders so that each folder with each set of creatives in there is named after the ad set that they're in. So it's all lovely and structured. Anyone that's going in to set that up is immediately aware of what they need to do. So I just tend to pop that link in there, but we'll go into that in a bit more on the next sheet. But that's where you'll find the link to those creatives. So if we move the next sheet along in this spreadsheet, you'll see that there's an ads creative planning section. This is where we get all creative about our planning. This is the fun bit. We've worked out all the figures and the maths now. That's all a bit, serious. This is where we can actually start to sort of see our adverts come to life, which is quite exciting. So yeah, what you'll find in this tab is a beautifully laid out, if I do say so myself, spreadsheet that allows you to plan all of the creatives for your adverts. Now, top of that spreadsheet in the light blue are your top of funnel adverts. And you'll see that it's already populated along the top there with your various different audiences that you popped into page 1, okay? So whatever those audiences were for your cold prospecting, there's a little column for each along the top of that spreadsheet there. And underneath that, there's a place for you to pop your headline, there's a place for you to put your copy, there's a creative description. So remember, we actually put the creatives in that folder that we popped on the last page, but you can put a description of which creative you're looking at so that whoever's setting it up or yourself knows that that's the one to use. We then choose the text that we want to put in the newsfeed. So it could be shop now or find out more or learn more or whatever that might be. We put the display URL. Bear in mind that the display URL can be different from the actual URL. You normally use your shortened one. So say you've got, mywebsite.com. The actual page could be mywebsite.com/shop, but the URL you would show would be the shorter one for your website. So you can specify which URL you want to show there. And then you can then pop the link to the actual landing page, so you know exactly where that advert is going. And underneath the landing page section is a link for you to place the draft ad creative. So if you've got somebody setting these up for you, this is really useful. This is what we do. So I hand this over to my ads guy. He goes away and sets them up. He then populates this with the link to the draft ad, which you can generate automatically from Facebook Business Manager. And I can then click through and see the actual ad itself and get the client to sign that off before we then go live with it. Obviously, if you're doing these yourself, you might not want to go through that extra process, but there is a section there that you can add that link to so that you can check any adverts before they're actually launched. So hopefully that you'll find that fairly self-explanatory when you go into the sheet there. Underneath that, we then move into the middle of funnel bits and pieces that we mentioned earlier. So we've got our Instagram engagers, our Facebook engagers, and our ad engagers. And if we want to, we can do different copy for all of those. Or we could combine them and just do one set of copy for that and one set of creatives, completely up to you. But it does allow you to get quite sophisticated. So you could say something like, oh, I saw you checking out my Instagram feed. I saw you looking at my Facebook post. It could be, I noticed that you were interested in my ad. It could be that you get quite specific in the wording that you use for each of those adverts, because you've got that ability. You can do all of that within the planning here. Or it might be you just use a generic middle of funnel ad that you roll out for all of them. Doesn't matter, completely up to you, but the ability to plan all of that is there. And then we got the remarketing for those people that have visited your website, and that's in the yellow section. Okay, so if you scroll down, go to the yellow section, it's all there. Exactly the same process again. So you can plan out your text and your headlines, and you can include the creative description, which you pop in your Google Drive file or whatever file you want to use. But you can also be, again, quite specific with your language. So it might be that for the abandoned cart thing, somebody that's visited your cart page, you have a specific, wording around, notice that, you've left something in your cart, or don't forget to check out, or something along those lines. It could be that if someone's seen a certain product, that you can actually specify that the creative for that is a product carousel made up of products that they've already mentioned. So you haven't got a separate creative for that, it's auto-generated depending on what products they've looked at. And you can specify that within the sheet so you know exactly what to set up when you go to the planning stage of it. So there's loads of different ways you can use this to plan your content. The world is your oyster really, but the point is that this simulates it in a way that makes it really easy for you to get all your ideas down, and for you or somebody else to then go off and schedule all of that. And of course, we've got the final one there. If you've got a larger budget for that kind of loyalty and customer retention element, which is highlighted in pink. So that can be, persuading people to come back and buy from you again, people that have already purchased, etc., etc. And again, you can plan all your ads in that pink section, exactly the same as you've done with the other ones there. So if you've done your competitive analysis, which I will pop a little link up to there, you will see that there was a section there for going through and spying basically on your competition's Facebook adverts and seeing what they are doing. And you can provide a link to that so you can refer back to it at any time and see any live ads that your competitors are running at that point in time. So I just tend to kind of copy and paste that information over into here just so I've got it handy in my planning spreadsheet so I can refer back to it. It might give me a bit of inspiration. It might mean that I kind of tweak things according to what the competitors are running there, but it's a useful little reference point. So I tend to stick that on that final tab and make sure that every time I run a new campaign, I've gone back and looked at those links again to see if there are any new adverts running for those competitors. So really useful to just keep refreshing, because obviously they update that as often as you do. So, you know, keep refreshing that and keep making sure that you really understand what your competitors are putting out there. So if you haven't already downloaded it, the link to that spreadsheet is below. Just click that and that will mean that you've got this link. You can copy it and save it, and you've got it yours to own forevermore. So I really hope that you find that useful in planning things. Most of these things that I've come up with, I've developed because I've genuinely really struggled with it myself. And this was something that I really struggled to get my head around and plan in a way that was strategic and easy to understand and easy to delegate. And this really helps you to achieve this. As always, I love your feedback. So if you're struggling and you want some advice, or if you found this useful, or if you've got any tips for how I can improve it, please do comment below. I love to see your comments and I look forward to replying to those. If you wanted to check out my video all about actually planning your Facebook ad campaigns from a creative's point of view, I popped a video just up here. That's all about how you can design your adverts for Facebook and Instagram. And if you wanted to check out that video all about your competitor analysis, which I mentioned earlier, then I'll pop a video just up there. So thanks so much. Thank you for watching. See you again soon.